Urban legends by definition are fictional stories, meaning that they're made up, have little to no truth to them, or just flat out fake. I bring this up for two reasons. One, that's all this episode's about, really. It was a slow day at Spirits and such, and so Reigen decided to capitalize on the people's fear of urban legends and goes on a search for them. And two, the topic of fiction versus non-fiction, or what's real and what isn't, is a theme carried throughout the episode. And you can see this theme being displayed through the urban legends themselves. There were a few urban legends brought up this episode, the likes of the human-faced dog, the red raincoat, the dragger, and my personal favorite, Dash Granny, of which only one was an actual urban legend, the sorts we familiarize ourselves with, and only one was an actual spirit that needed exorcising. Though you could also see this theme very early on in the episode when Reigen first got into a discussion with Shinra, a fake psychic versus a real psychic. However, this episode almost goes out of its way to try and demonstrate to us how a fake at times could be better than the real thing. In the case of Reigen and Shinra, Reigen's way of doing things eventually lead him to cracking and disproving most of these urban legends, while Shinra, although being an actual psychic, ended up being an accused pervert and nearly dying. And well, in the case of the urban legends, how a real spirit like the Dragger can be so small and unimportant compared to a made-up spirit like the Red Raincoat, who is an actual living person and an actual pervert who likes to flash children. Hell, even the Dash Granny, who ended up being just an old lady running through a tunnel and was by far the least threatening of all these so-called urban legends, posed more of a threat to Mob than the Dragger, who could slice you up in seconds. All because the Dash Granny is able to do something that Mob, despite all his effort and training, cannot. Nothing will ever scare Mob more than something or somebody that can do an everyday task at an above average rate. These last two episodes really capture why I absolutely love Mob Psycho, how they can just switch things up from episode to episode and it all seems so natural, and all, at the end of the day, serve some benefit to Mob, even though this episode wasn't about him specifically. You see, something this episode does immediately is cast Mob out. It tells us how Mob is uninformed when it comes to urban legends as a whole, so right from the get-go, Mob's out of the loop or doesn't have a clue about what Reigen is talking about. But at the end of the day, it's the very fact that he's out of the loop that made him defeating the Dragger possible. However, you can still see why Reigen scolds Mob right after. Yes, Reigen is helping Mob become a better psychic by putting him in all of these situations where he has to think about how to use his power. But Reigen is also helping Mob become a better person. You see, one of Mob's goals is something his psychic powers can help him with, and that's to become a functioning member of society. Which is why Reigen scolds and tells Mob that lip service gains importance as you grow up. To be a part of a functioning society, sometimes you have to lie and pretend like you know what people around you are talking about. You may not be interested, but when people talk about that Fortnite game, earpods, or that new anime with the slime, you want to have a clue. You want to be in the loop because otherwise you're an outcast, and that's the last thing Mob wants to be. This episode also did a couple of other things well that I couldn't fit anywhere into my script, so I'll just mention them here really quickly. I like the very subtle development for Dimple. Knowing that he cares for Mob enough to want his trust is really neat and really puts their relationship into perspective for me. The mechanic behind the Dragger was also a really nice touch. The fact that her strength is determined by the talk around her and the fear people gather from the discussions around her is really interesting. I also, in a very odd way, liked Shinra, but I also liked Emmy from last episode, so I really hope their characters serve some greater purpose this season. And I also like how they used what's probably one of the things Mob most dislikes about himself, which is his inability to get a clue or be in the loop of things, as a strength rather than a weakness like last week. This second episode was very reminiscent of last season's second episode, where Mob and Reigen went to an all-girls school to investigate some rumors. I mention this because to me it was during the third episode of season 1 where things started speeding up. Not that I don't like these standalone episodes, cause I love them, but I can't wait to get into the material we were shown in the previews leading up to this season and shown to us in the opening. That being said, I'm curious to read any of the thoughts you had about this episode. So talk about what you liked, what you didn't like, and what you got from this episode, or anything I didn't mention in the video. Also, if you're a manga reader, let me know how you feel Bones adapted these chapters. I appreciate all comments, so feel free to leave one, whether you answer any of the questions I asked or start a discussion on anything you deem worthy of discussing, whether it be related to the episode or anything I said. I'll reply whenever I can. Like the video if you enjoyed it, feel free to follow me on Twitter for updates, or if you just want to interact with me. And hey, there's a chance that if you're watching this video right now, you're not yet subscribed to the channel, so here's what you're gonna do. Create an account if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel by clicking that big red button. Also, make sure to hit that bell, that way you don't miss a video and can keep on watching Mob Psycho 100 and many other series with me. With that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.